Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women's Hormone Health online event to celebrate the Seed Cycle's first birthday. My name is Melissa. I'm the founder of the Seed Cycle, and we're on a big mission to help women balance their hormones naturally. Today with me, I have Sally. Hey, Sally.
Hi, Mel.
I'm going to introduce you. So Sally is a dermal clinician who believes in a realistic and holistic approach to skin health and wellness. I love it already.
Thank you.
With over 15 years of experience, Sally understands skin concerns can be accompanied by vulnerability. Her aim is to offer the most compassionate care possible while educating you on the why behind what she is suggesting for you. Prior to setting up the Skin Wellness Studio, Sally spent a large part of her career working alongside a plastic surgeon and a team of skin cancer doctors in a busy clinic. That would have been so interesting. This role saw her supporting patients on their surgical journey, as well as helping patients to manage inflammatory skin conditions and often using laser and light therapies to help patients achieve an outcome with their skin. Today, Sally has a special interest in holistic health and the root cause of skin issues. It's not only about what topical applications are right for your skin, but also about the impact of overall health, wellness, and stress can have on your skin. She believes in lowering the toxic load on your body to allow vitality and wellness. So thanks so much for joining us, Sally. I'm so excited to have you here and really excited to talk about this topic.
Thank you, Mel, and happy birthday to the Seed Cycle. Congratulations to you for creating such a wonderful product. And I love your mission of, empowering women to take control of their hormones, because it is a superpower when we understand completely what those hormones can do for us and when they're functioning in a way that we feel in control of. So congratulations. I feel really honoured to be a part of this forum.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Now, I thought we could start by, if you could talk us through the stages of hormonal changes in women. I thought that would be a really good place to start.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I guess our hormonal changes that we're most aware of with our skin, or just in general with our bodies, is when we start puberty. So, that can be as young as 8 to 13 is generally that age range that it begins. And this might be the first time that we are aware of skin changes. So that might be in the way of blackheads, pimples, blemishes, perhaps even moving into full-blown acne. That's the first one that we're really aware of. And as we, head into our teenage years, whilst puberty itself is, a space in time, I feel as though, our hormones are really still feeling their way through those sort of teen years and into our early 20s. So that's when I, can perhaps start to see clients to help them with their skin. And I'll circle back, I suppose, to what I can do to help and why those issues might occur. But I'll just go over those hormonal changes first of all. Puberty, the beginning of our fertile years, essentially. So then I suppose we're moving along into those childbearing years and pregnancy. So that's the next big change that we would see. And absolutely, we see skin changes during pregnancy as well. And it all comes back to hormones and what they're doing, and fluctuations and dips and all of that type of thing. So with pregnancy, we're very inclined, again, to perhaps see some breakouts and acne, but also to see some pigment changes as well. Which is a really, it can be a really stressful time for women. They're trying to do everything right for their bodies whilst they're pregnant, and then they've got these skin issues and they're not quite sure how to manage them. It can be a bit of a confronting time.
I remember being warned about pigmentation. Like, there was a lot of, when I was pregnant with Bella, so over 5 years ago, there was a lot of talk, like the topic of conversation was, oh, you might get pigmentation and you might get it around you. It looks like a moustache. And I don't think I got it, but I remember it being a topic.
And I think especially if you've seen someone, if it's happened for someone that you've known, you can be really a bit paranoid about it. But I think once you understand how you perhaps can prevent it, or how you can address it whilst it's happening safely, that's beneficial. Skin changes in pregnancy. Then we've got menopause and, you know, perimenopause, and when some of those hormones really decline, and those skin changes that we're seeing are more, you know, volume loss, lines, dehydration, that feeling of dryness, definitely, as our estrogen really plummets, plumpness, those youthful kind of attributes that we really love, that we've got, you know, in our 20s and 30s in huge volumes, start to peter off sort of those late 40s, early 50s. And look, absolutely genetics plays a part in that role as well, I think. But, you know, that's often, again, when I'm seeing women and they're just saying, I don't look like I'm feeling, feel like I look tired. And so that's where, again, we try and address what those hormonal changes have meant for them and their skin, and how we can address those together. I think the other big, it's not a hormonal big banner shift, so to speak, but our menstrual cycles. So every week of every month is slightly different. So if you're looking at your hormonal cycle as a 4-week cycle, every week your skin can behave a little differently as those hormones climb and decline. So, you know, when we're in our most fertile period, that tends to be when we're looking our most plump, volume filled and hydrated. And the science behind that is we want to look attractive for a mate. We're fertile. We want someone to come and, you know, make a baby with us. So, which I think is super cool. I love that our hormones, work with science that way. And then, you know, as we're coming towards our bleed week, you know, we can feel really dry, flat, dehydrated. You know, we might have some blemishes arise. So, which, you know, never adds to how we're sort of, feeling in that week, because you can feel a bit flat mood wise and that sort of thing too. So certainly those hormones are impacting the skin there as well. So, and that's where, you know, your product's so fantastic, that we can really harness, you know, nutrients to support our bodies whilst we're going through that menstrual cycle.
The first experience I had with seed cycling, helping someone else seed cycle, was actually for hormonal acne. And that's where I realized, I was like, this is really good. Like her the acne within a couple months completely healed up. And like, she couldn't believe it, I couldn't believe it. But even now, like, I had done seed cycling with my clients, and we saw all the benefits with them. But now on a larger scale with the seed cycle, especially when it comes to skin, a lot of our customers are telling us even within the first month, they're noticing changes in their skin. And I wonder if a lot of that is because of the vitamin E in the sunflower seeds in particular, plus all the other seeds, plus cycling it with your hormones, all that. But it's quite interesting, because we said to everyone, you know, give it a good 3 to 6 months to see the changes. But knowing now that within the first month, most customers are saying my skin's feeling really great, is so cool. The other thing I was thinking, as you're talking about the teen years, it's so interesting, because that's probably when I first heard about the link between hormones and your skin. And that was only because of my friends going on the pill to help their skin. And I remember thinking, I want to go on the pill. Like, there was actually nothing wrong with my skin, but I had this idea in my head that if you went on the pill, your skin would just be like amazing and different to what because that was the conversation. And so many of my friends were being put on the pill for their skin. So I'm so glad that we're having this conversation around other options and natural solutions to help with skin and the link between the skin and hormones.
Absolutely. And I think what we need to remember about the oral contraceptive pill is it's a contraception. It's not a tool to manage skin changes. It's a synthetic way of controlling the skin, which, you know, our bodies are amazing if we just look after them and nurture them properly. And that's where, you know, supporting them with the vitamin E, those omega-3s, fueling our body to function the way it's designed to function is so incredible. And I think, I'm sure if you were to ask your clients and your customers, they not only, their skin doesn't look better, but they feel better on the whole. You know, I think when you intentionally take care of your body, there's something super empowering and really beautiful about that. I know when I did my science degree, I was on the pill, and I just went home one day after one lecture and I just said, I'm not going to put this into my body, because this body keeps me alive, functioning every day, no matter what I do, no matter if I drink alcohol or expose myself to toxins or put synthetic hormones into my body, it still keeps me upright and functioning every day. I thought, no, it's time to, you know, show my body the love that it deserves and really allow those natural processes to occur. But it starts with the education, because like you say, if friends are using, you know, the pill or whatever to control their skin, you think, oh, I better do that too. So I'm super keen to really ignite that conversation around women understanding and using their hormones as superpowers, because that's exactly what they are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And like every time I have this conversation, I think, oh, I wish I knew this sooner. I wish more people know about this. Imagine if this was taught at school. And I hear so many people saying that as well. Imagine if this was taught to us in schools. And our cycles, like you explained, and using our cycles and how things change. And that's really interesting how you were talking about how our face actually changes and our skin changes in each phase. Because I definitely noticed my mood changes. That's for sure. And my body, but I'll pay attention to my skin as well, and the changes as I move through each phase of my cycle.
I think well, I was just going to say, the other thing that I think, coming back to that sort of teenage acne and those sorts of changes with hormones, is because we're having these surges of hormones, our liver is, you know, our detox organ. And so when we start to see these surges and dips and all that type of thing, the liver is essentially put under more pressure. And if it's feeling a really heavy burden, even if our hormones aren't, you know, out of whack or out of balance, it's still having to process more than it was prior to puberty. So that is where, if it's under burden and struggling somewhat, then we can see purging on the skin. So traditionally you will see the jawline being affected with that hormonal type acne. Certainly I believe that, you know, there is gut issues and things like that that can contribute to breakouts on different parts of the face as well. I use facial mapping when I'm sort of looking at clients' skin to understand perhaps what's behind their breakouts. But I think, that liver burden and toxicity, it can be responsible for almost all of the skin changes that we see. Because if you think about pregnancy, when you've got those big surges of hormones as well, that progesterone that can really impact pigment production. Also being on the contraceptive pill, you know, you can be on those synthetic forms of hormones that make our skin more susceptible to showing those pigmentary changes. And whilst exposure to UV and direct sunlight is going to play a role as well, ultimately you've got to have that catalyst of that hormonal involvement first of all. So it's just understanding what putting something on your body or on your body will actually impact, and, you know, what hormones in pregnancy can do as well. So and looking after those parts of our internal health to really bolster our overall health and wellness.
And from a functional nutrition side, that's exactly what we're looking at with food. We're looking at, you know, what foods are going to our bodies aren't going to recognize and are going to cause that toxic overload or that burden, and then your body has to work really hard to process it on top of everything else it's doing for us. And and I love that. You know, and that comes down to the skin as well. Like, you know, I'm sure you can explain this better than I can, but I'll say to my clients, anything that you put onto your skin gets absorbed through your bloodstream, and then your body has to work hard to eliminate it. So just as we're also looking at quality food and trying to stay away from chemicals and preservatives and even pesticides and things that burden our livers and our bodies. The same goes with what we put on our skin, our cleaning products. And I know it's a rabbit hole once you start kind of looking into it. But I just find it incredible.
And look, I feel so strongly about it. I think I've always had an aversion to fragrance and chemicals, and I've always felt quite affected by those types of things. So I've always tried to come away from those chemicals. But I've got 3 children, and in my most recent pregnancy, I've got Vinny, who's 6 months old. So it was only last year. He's beautiful. And in that pregnancy, I was just so aware of, I was I wouldn't consider myself an old mum, but, you know, I'm 37, having my third baby. And I thought I really need to just give my body every opportunity it can take to grow the healthiest baby possible. And so I was really trying to limit my exposure to toxins and all of that sort of thing. So I did a huge overhaul of anything that I was applying onto my skin, because essentially anything you're absorbing, you're passing on to your baby as well.
Yeah.
And there's been studies into cord blood and what sort of chemicals have been found, you know, in the cord blood once a baby's born, and that really frightened me. So I thought, okay, it's time to really clear out anything that's got that toxic nature. Food, especially, I really tried to eat organic as much as I could. And, you know, I had a beautiful, healthy pregnancy, a beautiful postpartum period, and nutrition has played a big part in that, because you know, just under sleep, I think nutrition's the top of the tree, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because for this event, I also interviewed Cindy O'Meara, who's the founder of the Nutrition Academy, and I asked her for one key takeaway, and she said it starts with pregnancy. And yeah, that was her takeaway, that it, you know, it actually starts with, I think she said, your grandma, your grandmother.
The epigenetics are huge.
But really, it starts with pregnancy. And then she said, you know, obviously it's never too late.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and I 100% believe that. But yeah, really, really interesting take on it. And, you know, I think it is an important key takeaway for a lot of people who might be thinking about having a baby. And I know for me, both my pregnancies were similar, and I was lucky to kind of come across this information and start studying nutrition and fall into this holistic world probably 10 years ago. And that's when I really started cleaning up my pantry, and then I moved into my products, and then I moved into the skincare products, and then I moved into my cleaning products. And basically I just check all ingredients, and just if I don't know it, I just Google it and investigate, and then, you know, it becomes easier because you find the brands that you love and that you trust, and everything else. But and one thing I said to you was that now I've gotten into the habit of I'll use something up before I buy again. And I actually did that as I was cleaning out my pantry and my products. So it wasn't like, oh no, now everything's bad and I can't have anything. It was like, I'm just going to use this, you know, moisturizer I got from Woolies up. And then once I've used it up, I'm going to find something that's, you know, a little bit higher quality, better ingredients, and just continue that way over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do things.
Yeah. All right, I want to ask you, what are your favourite ingredients to include in an effective skincare regime?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Do you know what I think is almost more important? I will come to my favourite ingredients, but what you've just touched on is what it doesn't contain. So you look for products that don't contain artificial fragrance, preservatives, parabens, sodium lauryl sulfate, you know, those foaming agents that are going to be nasty and harsh on the skin. Because ultimately, you know, you're better off using the most simple product possible that doesn't contain those nasties, rather than something that's got, you know, states that it's got, you know, vitamin A or whatever it is that you think you're putting onto your skin, but it also contains all those nasties as well. So you're almost cancelling out the good that you're doing. But to answer your question, I love ingredients, you know, like vitamin C is a great one. So there are different forms of vitamin C, and, you know, they're not, every skin type's a little bit different. But vitamin C, you know, it helps with collagen production. It's an antioxidant, can help with brightening of the skin, can help with protecting us from the sun. I do think a cleanser, a gentle cleanser, that's perhaps enzyme based rather than a scrub or anything too acidic, is really beneficial too, because you want to clean the day away, and you want to clean your canvas before you're putting your active products on. I also love, probably my most favorite skincare ingredient is retinaldehyde, and it is a version of vitamin A, a very bioavailable form of vitamin A. So I explain to my clients that you think of vitamin A as a Russian doll, and there's so many, it's a little molecule with lots and lots of layers around it. And when you use a vitamin A, we have receptors on our cell that will utilize that vitamin A, but it's got to unwrap the layers to get to the core usable bioavailable part of vitamin A. So you want to use a form of A that doesn't have too many layers on the outside. So retinaldehyde, you don't have to unwrap too many layers to get those actives right into the DNA of the cell to utilize the benefits.
Oh, I've never heard it explained like that. It makes so much sense.
It does. It does make sense. Once you understand it and you can sort of visualize those, changes with what that molecule's got to go through, it makes more sense as to how you're using it. I guess, being in Canberra particularly, big fan of hydrators. So not all skins will tolerate hyaluronic acid, but if you tolerate hyaluronic acid, perhaps, facial oils and things like that can be really lovely to give that touch and feel of hydration. Certainly, I think looking after your internal health is really important. And, we've spoken about before, like omega-3s, that's really, really vital to really elevate your internal hydration. And I love things like cumin seed oil and things like that as well to form part of an at-home routine. And then, you're probably a good one to talk to about, the nutrition side of things as far as health goes. But yeah, certainly making sure that's on point as well. As far as, I think we've got a lot of unlearning. I know when I first did my study, it was all about acids and glycolics and exfoliation, and that means renewal. And my method or approach is very, very different, because I like to bring, homeostasis back to the skin and balance and wellness and health back to the skin without doing the trauma to get there. So using things like I said, enzymes to exfoliate, which are really, really gentle. You apply it in a thin layer, you can work it into the skin a little bit, but you're not going to over exfoliate parts of the skin with an enzyme. Perhaps if you're using something with granules or an acid, you can get an overuse in the area. So you do have to be careful. But I think that would be one of my most favorite products, as well as an add-on, is like an enzyme-based exfoliation. And obviously, sun protection is really important as well. Again, it comes down to if you can tolerate a sun protection. My general rule is avoid direct sunlight if you've got concerns with pigment, because relying solely on an SPF, it's not going to be enough. You still get that stimulation of your melanocyte, when you're outdoors and you've got a sun protection. But if you are choosing to choose a sunblock, I would say something that contains zinc oxide, because it's a physical barrier. It physically reflects the UV. So it's the best bet. Sun protections can be some of the worst offenders of, nasty chemicals that can actually cause, skin irritations, hyperpigmentation. Basically, if you turn your sun protection over and there's words on the back that you can't pronounce, it needs to be.
Well, I just know even with the kids, like at school, they were just, I hadn't taken in our own sunscreen, and I was just like, oh, they'll be fine, every however many times, it was like twice a week they were going a daycare, they'll be fine using that sunscreen, and they weren't. Like straight away they would get, I'd notice like dry patches on their cheeks. And then I said, oh, can we bring in our own sunscreen? And then as soon as we did that, their skin was fine. So I just noticed even just that, twice a week, it was too much for their skin. But that was one thing that I mentioned to you, is that I'd been I'm such a sun worshipper, and I just won't give that up. I love the sun, but I've always been paranoid that I've damaged my skin, my face, and I'm going to age, premature aging and all that, because that's what you hear, because because I love the sun so much. And you had a bit of a different take on it, and I just feel so much better now about that. And it's like, oh yeah, I was so worked up about that. So I loved your take on sun exposure and sun protection. And it's not like you're going to age prematurely, you're going to have all these lines, you're going to, it's really
There's so much more to the aging process, and even to skin cancers and to all of those types of things. But I think being nutritionally sound, getting enough sleep, and managing your stress. Those are the things that I would prioritize over putting a chemical on my skin that might prevent getting sunburn. And everyone's take on that's a little different, but that's my philosophy. But I'm also not telling people not to wear sun protection and go out and get sunburnt, but it's understanding what the sun can do for you, and when you should seek shade, and the right time of the day to see the sun. Try and get out in the early hours of the morning. It helps with so much, your circadian rhythm, your metabolism, all of those, your appetite. It helps with all of those sorts of things. So I think the sun gets a bit of a bad rap that time.
It does. And I was like, I'm not willing to give it up. And exactly what you said, it's not like I'm out burning my skin. I just, I've heard, so it's like your tummy and your thighs are like your solar panels, and that's where you can absorb the vitamin D. So like any chance I get when there is beautiful sun, I'm like got my belly and my thighs out in the sun to absorb that vitamin D. And it's just, I just do feel like it's like recharging my batteries.
Definitely. And I think just on that note as well, if someone came to me and they had pigmentary issues and they were really unhappy with it, then my advice would be to use a sun protection. It would be not to seek the sun, because UV is going to stimulate, those melanocytes further. But there's also other things we can do on the internal health side of things that can support the body's response to the sun, I suppose. Because, and that's probably one hormone that I haven't singled out, but cortisol. We talk about our sex hormones and estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. We forget that cortisol is a hormone that impacts so many functions in the skin and so many functions of the body. It fuels inflammation. Certainly a little bit of cortisol is good. It's good for motivation and getting us up and going and running away from a bear that's trying to eat us, or something like that. But it really impacts our wellness so much. And I think as a practitioner, that's one of my big goals, is really to help people understand what their stress response is and how it impacts their body and their skin, and perhaps what we can do to help manage that and support that stress response.
Absolutely. And that's why in functional health Canberra, I knew that I had to do functional nutrition and EFT together, because you can be eating the best foods and have the best diet and have all the nutrition sorted, but if your cortisol levels are through the roof constantly, and there might be some underlying trauma or triggers that are happening all the time, that it's not going to work. So having that component where we use EFT to help bring down cortisol, and we know that it does that really, really quickly and really, really well. I knew for myself that's what worked, like the combination. So I love that that you say that as well. And I did a consult with Sally over Zoom. It was amazing. And one of I love how you gave me some rituals, and one of the rituals was a meditation, and that's something that I know I should be doing, want to be doing, but it really having it down as one of the rituals, as well as the internal and the skincare. Ever since you sent me that, I've been doing my meditation every day, and I'm like, oh, this feels so nice. Should have started ages ago. But so I love that the consult with you was so holistic. It wasn't just like, here are some products.
Thank you. No, look, I know what it's like to suffer from stress. It's a busy world we live in, and add a couple of kids and a career, and it is a recipe for feeling a lot of stress. So I guess what I like to be able to offer people like you and my clients is options that they don't cost money. It's, even if I know that you and I discussed an app and we talked about some different practices that you can perform, but essentially you can be still with your breath for 5 minutes, and that will give you some benefit. And I know it's hard for people to sometimes grasp that, how can just being still and quiet and taking a few deep breaths help me? But until you try it for a number of consecutive days, it's hard to understand exactly the profound effect it can have.
And it is, I think that we can often have these beliefs of like, it has to be hard, it has to be expensive, it has to be a whole lot of effort.
Yeah.
And I think that's where with seed cycling as well, it's like you probably already have the seeds in your pantry. All you have to do is go grind them up. There's 4 seeds. You take them at the 2 phases. Like it's actually really simple, and it's something that you can do. And then it has like meditation, just this profound benefit. But it is similar, like you were saying, consecutive days of meditation. It's something that the consistency plays a big part.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think, there's going to be times, and for hormones as well, when people are seed cycling, there's going to be times when you feel that your hormones are more present and more impactful on you. And I think when we've been given these tools, we can so much more easily come back around to those tools. Someone might have taken the seeds for a couple of months, and then, the canisters run out, and I haven't come back, but I'm feeling okay. And then the next cycle comes around and they think, oh, actually, I'm missing that. But they've been equipped with the tools to take control and to go and make those changes again and to bring in the good. And I think, like you and I have chatted about before, that the benefits far outweigh the risks. The risk is that it doesn't work for you, but it's not going to harm you. But even that risk of it not working for you is incredibly low. The benefits are really, really there.
And it's like, I'm always really upfront when it comes to seed cycling and anything, that there's not just one fix all. There's no one solution, like we've spoken about today. When it comes to skin, there's lots of different things that can help. But what I find, and I've said this before, with seed cycling, for a lot of women, it seems to be that missing puzzle piece, because they're doing all these amazing things, a lot of probably what we've already spoken about, and then it's like they add the seed cycling in, and then everything comes together and starts working even better than it ever has before. And that's definitely what I experienced. So I like speaking about it in that way, because I think there's too many kind of promises with quick fixes.
Absolutely. I know. And I know when I did my degree back in the late 2000s, and I was really, I had to do a law component, and I said to the lecturer, so how can some of these big companies make these claims that I know are impossible, are impossible, but they're still allowed to make them? Like, if I, as a sole practitioner, was saying, oh, I can, I won't name anybody, but if I can, correct A, B, and C with this one cream, I think I'd be in trouble. But, these companies can make these big claims. And she gave me the term puffery, and it's allowed, and it's something that it's a tool to sell. So they're allowed it in their business, but it just mortifies me, and it makes me really upset for people that they put trust in these big companies because they're familiar. But it's essentially, it's kind of leading them down the garden path a little bit.
And it's like that with health food products, unfortunately, as well. Like, you go into the health food aisle and you might grab a muesli bar thinking, oh, this is healthy. And because of the labeling, the clean labeling, and it looks all healthy, and they might have some claims there about no sugar or something like that, and then you look at the back, and then when you go through the ingredients, it's like the list is this long, and there's nothing there that you recognize, and nothing there that your body recognizes.
All the numbers.
And so it's hard when you think you've been doing the right thing, and then it turns out you've been misled.
Winning.
All right. So I would love for you to share with us one key takeaway, and also how people can contact you, follow you, work with you. We will share all the links with this video. But please let us know.
So my key takeaway, and it sounds like Cindy O'Meara was the same, but it's never too late to start. I have conversations with women that say, oh, but I'm probably too old to, worry about my skin, but it's like saying you're too old to learn something new or to exercise. You're never too far gone. I think I work with women and men of all ages, but women of all ages and stages of life. I see it as an absolute honor to work with women, particularly in their vulnerable stages, to help them understand what they can do for their skin. But that would be my biggest take home, definitely. You know, it starts with one conversation and it grows from there, and it can become a really beautiful space to allow that self-care, and to allow it to be an empowering process and a guilt-free process, which as women we're not always good at, you know, prioritizing ourselves without guilt. So yeah, I think that would be my biggest take-home message for everybody. To find me or to work with me, I'm on Instagram at The Skin Wellness Studio, and on Facebook. But Instagram tends to be my main way I communicate with people. You can jump on there, and I do have a website coming. My business is still relatively small. I refer to it as a seed that I'm watering and nurturing and growing. So the website's on its way, but yeah, jump on Instagram. You can send me a message there. And yeah, through Mel. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us, Sally.
Thank you.
See ya.